Squad movement, peace, love, respect. All right. We're going to wrap this up. This is part 2, continuation of the subject fear and war, actually forms of mental illness, right? So I left off talking about how, unfortunately, mental illness is treated in a very, in my estimation, a very negative way in this country. But that's another video, right? The thing about fear is that it is unfortunately something that leads to quite a few very detrimental byproducts, right? And one of the ugliest and or I shouldn't say byproducts because it's a direct product, but one of the ugliest direct products of fear on a mass level is war, right? Uh, if you think about it, oftentimes fear is the motivating factor behind war. Fear when it turns to paranoia. Oh, they're becoming too advanced. They're going to attack us, right? Fear if it shows its head in the form of greed, right? That's right. Greed and fear are related. Greed is almost a manifestation of the fear of not having enough abundance, right? Have abundance and still yearning and thirsting for more and more and more. Fearful that you won't have enough, right? Example of that, United States, one of the most powerful, wealthiest countries in the world, constantly in acquisition mode, constantly in a state of lack, right? Constantly seeking to usurp, right? To capitalize, right? On anything that essentially they choose to, or we, unfortunately, I guess we have to say we because we've got to take some part in the responsibility for the actions of our nation, right? But unfortunately, we have waged war wholesale on this planet, all and always in the name of the freedom of the American people. But I would pose to you folks that unfortunately, not unfortunately, actually, fortunately, the freedom of the American people has not been challenged by an outside threat or a foreign national, foreign nation, should I say. Probably, I don't know, since perhaps the Revolutionary War, or right? The bottom line is that this country, unfortunately, and we can't just isolate it to the United States because we've seen war rear its ugly head all over the world. Look at what happens almost on a daily basis with the Palestinians and Israelis, right? And that's ugly, ugly, ugly bloodshed in the form of war that is waged on for centuries, right? Um, War, if we really look at it, is usually a result of fear, right? Um, they are looking to expand their borders, right? They want our territory, they want our land. A reason for fear. Um, the Middle East is this ominous figure, right? That's always pumped up as the international boogeyman, so to speak. We've got to keep the Middle East under control. Excuse after excuse after excuse for what? War upon war upon war. And oftentimes, once again, greed involved in there. Which one of the things that happened as soon as the Gulf War ensued, right? Particularly, even better example was one of the first things that happened when the struggle in Iraq uh, ensued. You had American oil companies swooping right in, right? Um, so the bottom line is there's always that sort of sick underlying uh, attachment to fear, right? In whatever form it is. If we can get rid of fear, if we can stop having thoughts, see, many of us think of fear in forms that are easily recognizable, right? You know, a bear escapes from the zoo and has been spotted in your neighborhood. You're fearful, right? You're fearful it's going to hurt you or your family or whatever, right? Which I could even argue that's paranoia. But anyway, all those are forms of fear. Um, Now that form of fear is very easily recognizable. But again, other forms of fear, like greed, right? Being a fear of not having enough abundance, or like paranoia, fear of things that are, it's a fear of possibilities, in fact. Um, we formulate, when you're paranoid, you tend to formulate, again, potential scenarios in your mind that actually have not existed or have not happened, that do not exist. Um, so the bottom line is, if we were to heal the minds of those who are so sickly addicted to and unwilling to let go of fear and war, then we'd have a great shot at changing the world in a beautiful way, right? The fear that grips them, um, the different forms that fear manifests itself, um, can all be treated, right? Um, we need to do so humanely. See, there are those who would say, hey, listen, man, it's time for revolution. Um, we need to rise up and, you know, do whatever to these elites who are really trying to bring an end to much. Hey, I can't find, I'm struggling to find a more peaceful way to say it, but there isn't one. They're literally trying to kill much of the planet. Um, you know, depopulation is real, folks. They're really not hiding it. They're not. They're just not hiding it. And the more you look into the ugly ways that the mentality of someone who would have allegiance to this depopulation plot, if you really examine it, you'll see traces of fear once again. Um, and I guess, in fact, if you take a look at it, you're also seeing war rear its ugly head, because it's a product of that fear, and it manifests itself in actually a war. This country is now waging war. Wow, this is deep. So I talked about how this country has waged war, right? The two W's there kind of messing with me a little bit. But this country has waged war all over the world, right? And now, in 2020, we can actually declare, sadly, that our country is actually waging war on its own citizens, right? Um, this is because we have individuals with a truly sick mentality at the reins, right? We've let individuals get in power and in positions of control who are stricken with fear and in love with war. Hold on, folks. I'm trying to get my lighting right so that you can see my face on that one. If nothing else I said in this video was all that important, remember those words. We have allowed individuals to get into power and positions of control and authority who have a sick mentality and who are in love with war. Right? This is a sad state of affairs, but it is the fact of where we are now. We got to change this, folks. But remember what I have said to you, and many folks know. You can't change anything until you're aware of what needs to be changed. Now we know it's 2020. Fear and war. It's actual mental illness, and we got to change this. We certainly need to no longer, hey, you can see me again. We certainly need to no longer have individuals in positions of power and influence and control who operate off of fear and who have a love of war. Two forms of mental illness. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect, no mental illness there. That's what we got to spread, and that's the cure for all this, right? Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq out.